So we're continuing on Parshat Noach. We're on page 5 of the section of Noach, and we're at word number 6 of Pasuk 13. Ba came. This has a munach, so we'll remember from before that munach has this strong separation from what's before it, and then moving forward to what's going after it as the new reality. So we've said that the end of all flesh, so this end is going to gather in the condition that was there before. Kol basar is specifically referring to the fact that the sin was trying to change the natural essence of the thing, the basar of the thing. And then ba, we're going to start from we're going to ignore the way that it was before, and we're going to say that the judgment is there's going to be something new that's going to come after it. The extent and multiplicity of offenses reached my attention, and it came with a demand for a proper response as suggested by the shape of the reading mark. So God is making this declaration that the way things have gone up until now, that can't continue, and something new is going to happen. As we note as we can deduce from the shape of the munach or the zakef. Number 7, for my face, lifanai. So that's again an interesting translation. Normally, lifanai means in front of me, but he's taking it as for my face, hanai. So that's an interesting translation of lifanai, by the way. Mm-hmm. Number 7, the results of.
Yes, to me those are two different letters. Pana and front. I like.
So, panim is a face.
Right.
So my face is panai.
But there isn't.
And he's then saying lifanai is for li l towards on behalf of panai to my for my face, rather than lifanai, which is normally taken as a compound word that means in front of me.
Oh, right.
So something that I would be facing would be something that's in front of me. So that's the normal translation for the word lifanai.
So you can do that.
But he's taking it as a compound word for my face, rather than the vernacular that it's come to mean in front of me. The results of violence. So we are at the zakef katon, where we're remembering that this is connecting to that munach that's in front of it, and it is the 2 dots that's on top of the word lifanai. The results of violence have presented themselves for my face and requested my immediate intervention as expressed by the bipartite shape of the reading mark. So whenever we see this katon, whenever we see these 2 dots that are aligned on top of each other that's on this word panai, he's always going to say that there's 2 things that are happening here, or there's a before and an after, or there's so he's always going to take the fact that it's those 2 dots and say that there's a significance to the fact that it's a 2. God is making this declaration that this end, there was a way that it was before, and there's a way that it is afterwards. And you see, so he's got this 2-part reading mark that is going to tell us that it is, in fact, a way before and a way after, and those 2 are going to be different. So you got a question? You look like you're deep into something to say.
And I'm just looking at lifanai and some of the other that where you see pnei, like pnei Elokim and merachefet al pnei hatahom and nothing.
Okay.
I don't have it formulated.
We'll come back if the thoughts solidify.
Actually, maybe I missed it when you said it, but so isn't this the way you would say lifnei?
The consonants would be exactly the same for lifnei.
Yeah.
But number one, when you're at the end of a phrase, things will get a longer vowel sound. But lifnei and lifanai are actually 2 different words. So lifnei, they both mean almost the same thing. One means in front of, and
I thought before.
or before. And lifanai specifically is referencing panim.
Yeah.
Lifnei, I Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would hazard a guess that lifnei, it would be impossible for lifnei ever to appear in Tanakh with a katon on it. Would you agree? Because lifnei has to take another word afterwards.
Yes. So right,
It's not, it
lifnei
has
is a
to be the end
joining
of a
word.
phrase in the same way you would never finish a sentence with the word before. Probably, well, in English I guess you could, but normally it's before what happened, something happened after that. Whereas lifanai, in front of my face, or my face, to my face, however Dr. Stevens is going to translate.
Okay.
It's the end of the phrase.
And again, we have an aside with lifanai. Kates kol basar ba'lifanai. The last cry and last breath, Kates, of the victims of cruelty came up to heaven and took a stand before me, requesting application of my justice. Kol demei achicha tzoakim elai.
Eli is a mistake here. It should be an aleph, not an ayin. Here. Otherwise it would be tzoakim alai.
So what is he trying to say
Yeah.
here?
That when he's talking about case, it's not just at the end. He's saying that the last breath, the last cry, it's as if it has a presence of its own. It's like it's an entity of its own. And that last breath, what as a creature, if you will, comes before Kadosh Baruch Hu and say, this is the last breath of this human who has died because of cruelty. I'm demanding justice with Elohim, right? The God of justice. How can you not allow justice?
We're personifying, if you will, the word
thank you.
Kates. We're taking this end and turning it into an entity. The end is standing in front of God. And he's saying it's just like with Cain and Hevel, Kol, the voice of the blood of your brother is calling to me. So he's saying this voice of the blood has become personified. And this Kates in the sentence here is standing in front of, literally standing for my face, standing in front of the face of God and saying, you've got to do something.
And that could be why, again, and look at where he put the note, right? For my face. So it's literally.
Number 8, Kimal'a, and I'm going to read number 9 with it, Haaretz. This is a combination called Mercha Tivir. So normally Mercha will lead into something else that goes after it. Sometimes a Tipcha, sometimes a Sof Pasuk. And the third possibility is that it leads into a Tivir. So this is a grouping where the first one gathers and the second one collects and ends the phrase. Ki mal'a ha'aretz. Because was filled, number 8. Because was filled the whole atmosphere with uncontrollable violence. Also, the punishment will be on a proportional scale without any escape from it, as confirmed by the directional shape of the reading mark. So he's saying that the filling that's going to happen here is, we notice that this is a gentle curve and it's leading into something else. So he's going to say that the punishment is going to be proportional. It's going to be midah keneged midah. It's going to be the way that God metes out justice is always the punishment is fitting for the crime. The punishment is of the same, is proportionate to the crime, is corresponding to the crime, so that there will be a logic for the person who suffers the punishment, and they might be able to take that punishment and ultimately use that punishment as part of their becoming better, or at least completing their role, so that they can in fact get forgiveness for what they've done. Punishment is not done just for the sake of punishment. Punishment is done to teach, to guide, or ultimately to give a method of forgiveness. I mean, so you have punishments that lead to death. How does that make a person better or teach someone? It doesn't. There's no more to learn after you're dead. But ultimately, you need the ability to have made up for whatever you did wrong. And if you can't do that by anything that you can assert through your own character, then at least your end should be something that befits what you have done wrong, so that the end can forgive some of the wrongs that you've done.
Jeff, you sang this combination that you call the special combination of Mercha Tevir. You sang differently than you sang Mercha on its own. So Mercha Tevir, but Mercha on its own is just Mercha. Do you have a other than that we were taught that way? Do you have any other suggestion as to why the note changes in such a combination?
Might be just to differentiate it out from Mercha Tivcha. It might also be emphasizing the connection. But I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think in terms of people who learn from like a Sephardi nusach, or people who've learned from other people. I almost always do hear a difference.
Okay.
So there has to be something. It really has to be something intrinsic to the combination,
right,
rather than something that's just a personal a personal preference, or a personal style.
Yeah.
So again, because was filled, number 8. The idea is, again, that we're going to gently lead in, so the response is going to be proportional. It's not going to be something that's emphasized. It's going to be exactly the right amount, not too much, not too little, and it's going to, the filling is going to go into ha'aretz, it's going to go into what's going to come after it, and it's literally going to be a wave that you're going to be carried forward on, and you can't go back from. So ha'aretz.
Sorry, so this is Mercha and then Tevir and then Tipcha?
Well, don't worry about the Tipcha, because the Tevir, again, we've said before, is something that does have a pause after it. Mercha Tevir. After you said that, you really do have to pause before you go into the next thing. So Mercha Tevir, Mercha. That momentary pause in between. It's not an end of a sentence, but it might be a comma.
So therefore, there are times where if what's under the mal'ah is called a mercha, and what's under the chamas is tipcha, is that?
Tevir.
Is it Tevir?
Oh,
You notice it's got the little dot in the center.
But you're going to the next one.
I mean chamas.
Chamas
Is ticha. Is
And the
mercha
tipcha
and tipcha. So often, don't mercha and tipcha come as sort of brackets to
So
a thought?
mercha will always be something that is followed by something else. As I said, there are really only three possibilities that usually come to rise. Mercha, tipcha is probably the commonest one. So the first one scoops into the second one. Mercha Tevir is the one that we've got here. Mercha, Tipcha, Mercha, Sof Pasuk. You've got the Mercha that's leading into a Sof Pasuk or into an Et Nachta. So it'll lead into the end of a phrase.
So here
So
you
it
have
leads
ha'aretz.
into it.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Here you have
ha'aretz,
which is the Tevir, and
Chamas, Mipnehem.
Okay, and so Hamas, Mipnehem, but Hamas, the direction of the reading mark
is going to
is
refer backwards, but it's going to refer backwards, and it might collect a whole bunch more stuff than just from the word before. So, if for instance, we didn't have the word ha'aretz there, Kimalach, Hamas, Mipnehem. If we had it that way, the Hamas would really only collect from the mercha, from the Kimalach. But when we phrase it this way, Kimalach ha'aretz, that stands by itself, and then Hamas refers backwards, but it can refer farther back than just from those two words. It might collect more.
Let's see.
So number 9, the earth. And again, you notice that we're using ha'aretz, we're using the same word that's referring back to Maseh Breshit. Even the earth had also passively contributed to man's effort by its shapes and forms of the surface, it deserves a just punishment as well. So
How does
So-
that make sense?
we note that the Tavir was that thing with an outside surface with something that's sheltered within it.
Mm-hmm.
So what are we saying? The actual environment that man was in, that shell with him on the inside of it, had led in some way to the way that things had to be changed. So it in and of itself, by providing the
Making it
space
too
in
easy for
by
it to happen.
the space in which people would tend to concentrate in certain places and not go to other places and so on. So it led in and of itself to making this easier to happen. So in a previous talk we had referred to the fact that the trees in and of themselves didn't quite follow what they were supposed to do in terms of the original act of creation. And these are very difficult and esoteric concepts to try to understand, because it still ends up as kitov. It still ends up as productive and something that God wants to perpetuate. So you can have an incomplete fulfillment of God's will that is still acceptable. Not only acceptable, but desirable. And it's a very difficult concept to sort of ultimately get your mind around. So the earth, the environment that is sheltering the man, because you've got this tavir, this outside shell with the dot on the inside, is also contributing to this filling up. Kimal that's the things that are going wrong are going to be to the point that it is just leading to a situation where if the environment stays the same, that things are not going to have a chance of recovering, and that is why we get a flood. That at the end of the flood, you're going to notice that Noach is going to look outside of the ark, and he's going to see that the land is destroyed as well. So what did the land do? Well, the land made all of this possible, the way that the environment was shaped.
Can I ask you something?
And again, this might refer to the actual physics of the world, and not just the world itself, not just the fact that there are valleys and hills and so on.
Right, I was going to say, well, there weren't like earthquakes and
Beaches,
shifting of the plates immediately before this happened.
No mention of that.
So you're saying, it might just refer to the laws of nature that like, can you give an example of how it might have facilitated this awful behavior?
So when we look at Maseh, with number one, when we look at Maseh Breshit, when we look at the 7 days, the 6 days of creation, we notice that we have Aretz before we have this concept of something that's firm before we necessarily even have stars, and probably not planets either. So obviously this concept of Aretz refers to something more than just the planet that you're standing on. So that's why I'm trying to generalize it to the concept of physics or matter, or whatever you want to call it.
Well, I guess this is quite
And
the
that's why
opposite.
we're not doing Breshit first, because it's too hard. It's too hard.
But see, how I took it is, and just because of the word passively contributed, I would have thought it's more sort of a complacency by making things too comfortable for somebody. They're not going to do anything. They're not going to go out. They're not going to excel, which leads to their own downfall. You think, oh, everything's fine. Everything's perfect. I don't have to go get a job. I don't have to go and do anything to improve myself, because everything's just fine. So by everything around me being passive leads to my own downfall. And that's how I saw it here. And just by him using the word passively, I see the earth being too comfortable, the surroundings be too comfortable. That's how I took that.
It's an interesting thought, but I wonder how would that justify a punishment? In other words, God is saying, He's saying here that it's because of the earth's role that it too deserves the punishment.
It's
So something's
passive.
gone.
We've got to make it, and now we have to make the earth less passive. Make it.
Comes from a skier who enjoys the cold weather, the snow, and the ice, see?
Well,
As
yeah.
opposed to the beaches and the
So
warmth.
you make the environment such that man and animal will have to now work it, do something with it, to create a productive life.
Oh, you know what I'm thinking? I don't know if this is true, but this is probably a rejection of the animist and paganistic ideologies, right? Like, where the earth has a function that's more than, like, has a humanistic function.
Personified.
And not personified, yeah. So that's a little bit outside of what we were saying, but.
Say that again. Can you explain that further?
Well, I was just thinking that this whole passage is sort of a rejection of like paganism or animist values where animals have, you know, they have intentions, they have actions that are like human or superhuman, that the earth has a function that's godly or has an effect on people with intention, as opposed to just being creations of Hashem that sort of have a function that's contained within themselves. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the Kabbalistic concept is that you have things that flow down power and influence from things that are above them, but you have to recognize that they are a mask of something that is higher than them, that's giving them their ability to radiate things to you, and you can't get caught up on the messenger without realizing that something else happened before it. So you can't look at the sun as the bringer of all life, because ultimately God created the sun. You can't look at your parents as the ultimate influence, because ultimately God helped to create man and be turned into your parents. So if you get caught up on one of the intermediaries, then you will always make a mistake. But you will notice that when it refers to idols and so on, it calls them Elokim, Elokei. Calls them, you know, the gods use the same name as one of the names that we use for Hashem. Why? Because if you look at it with this skewed view, you will give it a false power or a false importance that it doesn't really have. But you could be fooled if you weren't careful.
Do you think that the bipartite shape under Haaretz, before we learned that it had something exterior and something different interior? So here it's Kimala Haaretz, Hamas, that the Aretz wasn't necessarily a bad influence. It was blemished, that there is a blemish inside it, but it's not entirely destined for perdition, because in fact the flood covered the earth, but then when the flood receded, the earth came again. It appeared again.
I think what your father is specifically taking out of this is he's taking out of the fact that man, the thing that the dot that's sheltered within the outside shape, is man sheltered within the environment of the earth. So he's taking not it as something that's wrong within an earth that's good on the outside. He's saying that man, who is being sheltered by the earth, is where this problem is. So man within the earth is the blemish, and the earth is maybe contributing to it, passively making it a place where man can do the wrong thing.
As you were saying. Very good, thanks.
Number 10, Hamas, violence. So this is a tipcha, and remember this is a backwards looking note. It's going to collect something from before with ever so minor of a pause after. It's going to collect whatever garbage is on the floor. Yes. Number 10. As a result of this intimate collaboration, severe and extended violence was stretching over wide territories, as illustrated by the reverse inclination of the directional reading mark. So again, we'll notice that this tipcha had a note that paused before it. So this tevir on haaretz means that Hamas is collecting more than just from haaretz or from the word that's directly before it. It can collect a whole bunch more because it's just standing on its own. So it's collecting all the way back. So he's saying stretching over wide territories.
How do we get that? How do we derive that?
Because we're deriving that because there's nothing. It's a tipcha. It's collecting back, and you don't have another word that's connecting into it beforehand.
Like a limiter.
You have it's collecting.
Anyway.
It's collecting back, and it can be as far as unlimited. So that's why he's saying wide territories and extended and severe. He's using all of those big words because we've got this collecting, and it can be collecting as much as it possibly can. Mipnehem. So again, this is an eknafta. So this is going to end the first half of the two sentence phrase, if you will, from their face. So you'll notice he's using the same grammatical way of defining the word mipnehem from lifnei. So he's taking the mi, that preface in front of it, panim, pnei, pei nun, for the word face, and hem, there. So mi, from, pnei, face, theirs, hem. And the same way that we did for number 7, li, le, fanai, for my face. So he's again consistent in the way that he's breaking up compound words. And ultimately he's doing that because he's saying each word is standing in and of itself inside of its own paragraph. Because it's got its own reading mark on it, it doesn't have to connect to the stuff that's before it, and you have to really define it as a standalone word because it's going to fit into its own paragraph. You take the standalone word and then you fit it into the paragraph that you're going to create. Number 11, the normal looks of the people and of the animals became altered. Only an expression of brutality and ferocity became evident from their face, and accordingly all advantage was taken by prevalence of power as conveyed by the stabilizing shape of the reading mark. So remember that etnachta is this stable base and looking up towards something possibly. So what is he saying? From their face, we're seeing that this is the way that things had become and were going to stay. The violence, the Hamas, is going to be literally visible on their face, and this is the way that it was going to be from here on in. So this is the stability that it's achieved. And I'm just seeing if there's anything that focuses back onto Litanai, but I don't see it. Okay.
Because you could actually read the pasuk without that word at all. Ki mal'ah haaretz chamas. Stop.
Right. So again, this is a very big concept in Torah. When you read a sentence, you look at each word and you say, could you have read the sentence without that word? And if a word is there that doesn't seem to be necessary, well, the Torah is always very conservative of not only words but letters and so on. So we could have easily read the word, read the sentence, because the earth had been filled with violence. Ki mal'ah haaretz chamas. So why do we have to add mipnehem? So quite obviously it's adding something else. So the stability is not on the Hamas. The violence was not, but it was mipnehem. Literally, the way that they looked had been changed. This is the Dorian Gray story, right? They literally it showed on their face the way that they had made themselves.
Also, I wonder if me from their face means like beginning from their faces. Like it's not. It's so permeated that it's beginning from their faces, mipnehem, and it's permeating everywhere. Mal'ah haaretz. And that's why they use the prefix me.
Like from here, then raising out.
You know, like beginning, starting from their faces, everything was full of violence, starting from their faces.